Hi, everybody, and welcome to this conversation of impact for kids. And today, my very special, amazing guest is Emanuel Brown. So I'm just going to read a little bit about Kyle, and then we're going to get into this amazing conversation. So Emanuel Brown is a high-performance coach. He focuses on busy leaders, executives, and successful entrepreneurs, and helps them to live the life that they want the way that they want to. Kyle is a certified strength and conditioning specialist, a master hypnotherapist, and a master NLP coach. He has also studied EFT Clinical Nutrition, is proficient in the teachings of the quantum field, and as a certified professional trainer, Kyle elevates his clients to next level success holistically through body, mind, and spirit. So hi, Kyle, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, and excited to offer some good wisdom and learn and have fun. So
excellent, brilliant. I'm thrilled that I know you've got a very full life, so for you to make time, I'm really, really grateful. So you are a very successful, what people would look at you saying you're a physical coach. So you help people reach their physical goals, and you're not just working with anybody, you're working with very successful people who are at the top of their game in many areas. So what I love about your bio is all of the different holistic facets that you bring to your practice. So your hypnotherapist, your NLP, your quantum field, your everything, which I just find delicious in every way, because I'm all about being holistic. So one of the first questions I would like to ask you is, even though you're actually dealing with people reaching their physical goals, what do you do to dance with mindset within that?
Well, it's a great question. I kind of look at the holistic thing like, the Mr. Potato Head dolls, right? Like that's the only time that we can work in parts, right?
Yeah.
You've got Mr. Potato Head there, and you can pull off the arms and legs and face and nose and pop them in. And if you really look at it, it's like we don't work that way. We are a fully physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic being that everything is all working together. And what happened was one day I realized that compartmentalization, right, is a total illusion, that you can't compartmentalize, like, oh, I'm going to deal with my relationships at home with my family and kids over here, and then put on my hat for my work and show up as my work person. It's like, that's kind of all of an illusion. It's all interrelated. And what happened was, when I started working with a lot of elite level athletes back about 15 years ago, I started noticing that the mental game was so incredibly important. And so I went from physical and nutrition and everything really deep into the mental game and focused on imagination, just like little kids do, but realized that can be an asset, not a liability. And so we started looking at and studying and visualizing, for example, the successes before they happened. And it's amazing what can happen when you visualize success before it happens. It takes away so many of the nervousness, this fear of the unknown when you walk into a new environment and try to just live and compete and thrive in more than just sports.
So what you're saying, excuse me, in effect, is you're sort of rehearsing it. You're rehearsing it in your head first.
Right.
Theater,
right? When kids grow up, if they decide to do a play, they'll go and they'll rehearse, right? And then they'll rehearse, and then they'll rehearse more and more and more and more, and they'll get their lines down. And then once they get their lines down, they start saying their lines as if they're just naturally talking. And then they have their dress rehearsal before they even do the actual show, and then they do the show. It's the same thing with anything in life. The greatest athletes of all time, before they even step onto a course, like a golf course or a football field or basketball field or soccer, they played the game in their mind before they've ever even stepped there. They've walked through all the different varieties and variables. And it's a great tool to use in anything you're doing in life so that you walk in more confidently.
Yeah, definitely. So, so mindset then is one of the core elements that you use to help people achieve their physical goals.
It is literally at the foundation of everything. Because if you dig into the physical goals, I like to act like a little kid. Little kids ask the most annoying but most important question of all time. Why?
Yeah.
Why? And then it's like, we're told, shut up, because I said so, right? And the answer is because I said so.
Yeah.
And then we're conditioned to stop asking why.
Yeah.
Which is terrible, because it's like, just show up and be cattle going through the process and stop asking why.
Yeah.
That's wrong. I like to tell little kids, always ask why, and then ask yourself why. Why do I want to do this? So intention is everything when it comes down to doing anything that's worth doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I love what you're saying there, and I really, really relate to it, because when I have set myself, I don't like the word goal, but when I've set myself, you know, the where I want to be, I actually don't tell anybody because I want to get really, really clear and solid in my vision. And what I have found in the past, if I've got a big dream and then I start sharing it too early before it's really concreted within me, and then you get people, because of their limitations, saying, you can't do that. People from my neighborhood don't do that. You know, you haven't got the facility, you know, you don't know the people, you don't know this. And then it sort of crushes your dream a little bit, and you have to build yourself back up.
It's huge. It's huge. And I'll give you a good sort of example of that. What I find is that people meet you and look at you through the lens in which they first meet you. So you'll start with your parents. Your parents look at you as the person whose diaper they changed, right? And they really, hopefully they care about you and they want the best for you, but they're afraid. They don't want to see you get hurt. And then you move on to your friends and they look at whatever lens they meet you through. So I did a test actually on this exact thing, which was, I took an article I wrote for a national fitness magazine once, and I sent it as a Word document, as a Microsoft Word document, to half of my friends and family. And I said the words, check out this article that I read in this fitness magazine. Tell me what you think. And they gave me their insight, great points. They're debating back in town. I sent it to the other half and I said, check out this article that I wrote. Tell me what you think. And everybody tried editing it, spell checking it. And I didn't ask anyone to edit, but I just wanted to see.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
And it just shows so much. So I like to tell anybody, you know, listening, if you're younger and your kid, like, your parents have your best intentions out there, but it's your goal. Like, every parent's goal at their core essence is for them to have a better life, their kids to have a better life than them, right? But then their operating system tends not to be that way because they're afraid of any kind of changing outside of the box.
Yeah.
They're afraid of the big dreams.
Yeah.
So maybe they're afraid of risk.
Yeah.
So it's,
and one of the, sorry, I was going to say, one of the best stories I've ever heard to illustrate that point beautifully, about not allowing other people's limitations to limit you. And I think that's a really key thing, particularly for young people who are surrounded by people who've got an opinion, whether it's asked for or not, you know, just like you were saying. And I've read this beautiful thing in one of the Jack Canfield books, compilation books. And he was saying that there was a student who they had to write down what they were going to do when they were older for an assignment. And he wrote down that he was going to own the biggest, most successful horse farm in America and blah, blah, blah. And so the assignment came back and the teacher gave him a fail and said, no, you need to write an assignment based on what is realistically achievable for you in the future. And this kid was only about 10 or 11, you know, he wasn't particularly old. And he handed his paper back to his teacher and said, you keep your F, I'll keep my dream. And wow. He actually ended up with one of the largest horse farms, very successful in America. And I just love that so incredible. Much. Love it. Because, you know, who am I to say that your dreams aren't valid? Who am I to say you can't achieve that? I'm going to put my limitations. I can't see your vision, and therefore I'm going to dismiss it.
Through their lens, the dream is unattainable.
Yeah, amazing. So, okay, so you work with very, very successful people, entrepreneurs, leaders, you know, you work in that space, and that's amazing. So what my question is, you're working with people who are extremely successful, and yet in some areas they're still needing help. And I really want to amplify that point for people who are listening, because just because you need help in one area doesn't mean that you're not a successful person, or you don't have massive potential, or anything like that. And this is a brilliant example of that, because you're working with people who are uber successful and they just need support in that one area. So what would you speak to say about that sort of issue, that people who maybe aren't doing well in a certain area and they feeling badly about themselves? How would you speak to that?
Well, two sort of stages to that. The first one is there will eventually be a time where they will be able to focus their attention on their strengths and their things that they are passionate about and excited about, and outsource the rest.
Yeah.
Right? I don't sit down and do my own business books. I took math and I would ask the teacher, what's the purpose? And I wasn't able to really get a good, clear, linear purpose between here's why we're doing these algebra equations and here's where you're going to use it in your life. And so I struggled. And it was the one piece that just didn't light me up with excitement. So I wouldn't read the books. I wouldn't study. I wouldn't practice. I wouldn't take it seriously. And that was, you know, if I look back and were to redo that part over again, I would have just kind of sucked it up and gotten through it and put a little bit of effort into it, because now I understand that how you do one thing is how you do everything. Yeah. I would say, you know what, the purpose is to just get through with this right now, finish it up, get done, and move on. And then I would tell them to ask a really important question: who, not how. And what happens is typically, because that's a great question for when you get older too, instead of saying, I don't know how I'm going to do this, the better question is, who can help me achieve this? Wow. So go get a tutor, right? When I was in high school, I ended up getting a chemistry tutor who happened to be my teacher. My actual teacher ended up being my paid tutor. So I know I'm going to get the right person, show me the right stuff. Yeah. And I took something that, again, I just wasn't lit up about with enthusiasm. And I worked worked hard at it. And I did better than I would have done. I think I still didn't give me an A. He gave me a B, but I probably would have gotten a D. Yeah. So it's who, not how. And even if you're like, you know what, I can't afford a tutor, there's always somebody who's willing to help if you just ask. Yeah, absolutely. Hired professors, people like that. So I love that. I really, really love that, because I just literally had a conversation with my daughter about this. So she's just graduated high school here. And, you know, the last year of high school, it was super tough and emotional and pressure and COVID and everything thrown in to make things a little bit more heightened. And, you know, we were discussing how, because they've had a difficult time because they've had to do some on campus, some at home. It's not been ideal, and they've had to negotiate their way through it. And, you know, I said pretty similar to what you've just said, in that all you can do is show up and do absolutely, give it your best shot, you know, A for effort. And then, you know, whatever the grade ends up being, as long as you put it in the A for effort. And I said to her as well, you know, she wasn't enthusiastic about all of the subjects she had to pass to get to the next stage. But I said, look, all you need to do is get enough to open the next door. Right. You know, we don't want straight A's. We just need enough, work hard to get enough to open the next door, which is her uni course, which she got, which is fantastic. But I think, you know, people put so much pressure on themselves and they compare themselves to people who have had a head start, you know, who haven't necessarily had the challenges that they've had, or the difficulties, or whatever it is. And so it's really important, I think, not to compare ourselves either to other people, but just compare ourselves to how we were last week, last month, etc., and recognize that progress is progress, even if it doesn't end up in an A. Absolutely, absolutely. Because if whenever anything gets difficult, you give up on it now, all you're doing is creating the mental patterns. So the same thing's going to happen in adulthood. There's going to be a lot of things of being an adult that you're not going to want to do. Yep. And if you try brushing them under the rug as an adult, the government can come after you for not paying your taxes. Yeah. You're like, I didn't want to do it. I hate math. Right? So you go and you find an accountant and somebody to do it, or a bookkeeper. And it's like the same kind of thing, which is basically one of the biggest things that I notice is vicious independence where, as an entrepreneur or somebody who's trying to eventually work for themselves or doesn't want to be part of some sort of corporation, we say, you know what, I love being this creative visionary and I just want to do, build, create, discover what I want to do, discover what I want to be, help change the world. But we try to do everything alone. And as you can see from my little zebra here in the background, we in the animal kingdom as humans are communal animals. We are not like a male lion that separates itself from everything and tries to be, you know, a one-man show or a one-woman show, right? We are animals that are meant to be surrounded by other animals to lift each other up. So again, tapping in and finding resources, the people that are so excited, like, man, I love to clean my room. You know, those are the kind of kids you're going to want to be friends with. Cool, you want to clean my room? Come on over.
Yeah, and I love that so much because I was having a conversation with someone the other day and I was saying to them, look, unless you are able to reach out and ask for help, people can't ask you because you might have a strength that you're able to, you know, elevate somebody else as well. So as you say, it's like that connection thing. And sometimes we undervalue our strengths that we can actually use to help people get to next level success because it comes naturally to us.
Without question, some people just love helping others and getting that opportunity to help others doing what they want to do, right? So like, I love when, you know, people come to me and ask questions and not asking me, hey, do this for me. But when they're asking questions because they're trying to better their lives, it's exciting. Those are fun conversations. It's all about the energy of which you approach it. If you approach it whining and complaining like a victim, people aren't going to be that excited to help you. If you walk in saying, hey, you know, I'm going through this, I'm hitting a couple of roadblocks, I'm excited to try to figure this out. And I know you're an expert at this. Is there any way you could help me out? Maybe show me how to do better at this? You know, much more likely you're going to get help. And if the person isn't giving you help, find somebody else.
Absolutely. And what I love about that is that you are working with the best of the best, and the best of the best are reaching out and asking for help on an area that they need help on. So possibly that's a key element of what it takes to be the best of the best, is that ability to ask.
Right. And the best of the best is a very funny thing. We tend to look at somebody who's succeeding in one thing that we want, albeit like a top level athlete or a celebrity or a super wealthy person. And what that means is that they typically hyper focused in one area and they became the best of the best at that, which means in the whole circle of life, they're probably failing really hard at a lot of other things. You put these people up on this pedestal that, oh my gosh, this guy can run faster than anybody's ever ran before. Or, you know, this woman here has built this 7, 8, 9-figure business. She's got it all figured out. No, she doesn't. No, he doesn't. They're just rocking it in one category. And if they give the illusion that everything is perfect in every category, it's the illusion that everything is perfect in every category. It doesn't mean it's the reality. The truth is everybody's doing the best they can with what they've got. And I want everybody listening to know that, you know, when you see these different people that you idolize, they're human just like you. They should not, nobody should be idolized. If you want to idolize anyone, idolize yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you're doing great with what you've got, and we're all here for a good purpose.
Yeah, and something that I've noticed, because I've studied people who have done well, because this is a great time. You've got YouTube, you've got the internet, you can research from your living room or from the library or wherever you've got access. And one thing that I've noticed about people who are particularly successful in whatever area they are, is they went through a dark patch. They went through struggle. You know, it hasn't all been stepping stones of glitter and rainbows and wonderland, you know. And that really helped me through some difficult times, because we've negotiated through nearly losing our home at one point. We've nearly lost one of our children to illness. We had some really difficult times. And one of the best things that I learned by studying these people is the phrase that actually Jack Canfield uses, which is, this is just a chapter in my success story.
Yes.
And that's so important as well, to know that, you know, just because it's tough right now, you know, if you can just move through that and get to the other side, Number one, it's going to give you resilience, gifts that you couldn't have possibly imagined, you know, those core elements that we need in life to drive us through to what we want to do. And the other thing to remember is it's not forever. If we can just hang in there, there's going to be the other side. We just need to hang in there.
Buddhists ask for these challenges and feel so blessed when they get these challenges, because they know that it takes adversity to grow and expand into the best and highest version of yourself. You're not going to expand into the best and highest version of yourself hiding out in a cave.
No.
And the more challenges, opportunities, obstacles that we have, the more opportunity to grow. And also, I'll tell people, because it gets, you know, social media is a huge addiction for anybody. It's like saying, I'm only going to smoke one cigarette. It's the modern day cigarette. You start looking, you're going to look more. And it's been shown the more time you spend on it, the more depressed you get, because you're seeing everybody's highlight reel. What I like to tell people is when you see successful people's stories of overcoming adversity, nobody shares their story when they're in the middle of the storm.
Yeah.
They tend to share their story when they're through it. Look what I overcame. I'm just like you. Right? They're not sharing it with excitement when they're in the middle of it. Hey, guess what? Life is absolutely
I'm
terrible
suffering
right now.
I'm really suffering.
Yay, buy my stuff. Nobody's sharing it then. So remember, and then if they're having it, they'll wait and then they'll share it once they're through it.
Yeah.
So what I like to tell people is it's hard to see the forest through the trees when the forest is on fire and you feel that way. So you just want to rise above it and be able to see beyond the horizon and understand this too shall pass, whatever it is. And the objective through that whole process is perseverance.
Yeah.
And there's two different fuel sources that I talk about. The main fuel source, most people think, is willpower, that you need to push and focus and just go as hard as you can to make it through. That's not the way to work. Enthusiasm is the main fuel source most people should be using at everything that they do. And then they turbocharge it with willpower, kind of like it's nitrous on the back of their engine whenever it's needed. There's moments you put your head down and you buckle up and you weather the storm and you make it through. But in general, you want that main fuel source to be enthusiasm, no matter what's coming your way.
Yeah, I love that. And that's very powerful, actually, because I think people have got this idea that it's got to be some sort of a punishment model. You know, we've got to sort of put ourselves through these, you know, we've got to punish ourselves for not being where we are yet, and then push, as you say, push through that negativity. But you're saying flip that.
Yep, that's the old masculine paradigm where everybody is like push, force, struggle, overcome. Like it's such an old paradigm, where I really think with that type of paradigm, that's the way we set up a lot of school systems. Be quiet, pay attention, struggle, study as hard as you can, memorize, and spit back to me exactly what I said.
Yeah.
And then we get into works. Be quiet, put your head down, sacrifice your friends, family, life, joy, happiness, everything, and get that next promotion up the ladder. That way of doing things is the old paradigm. And we have to be courageous to step into the new paradigm of saying life wasn't meant to be lived as somebody else's slave. And the truth is, we have to step into a paradigm of saying, you know what, I have emotions for a reason. What's lighting up my emotions? I wasn't given this emotion system because I'm broken. Like, what emotions are lighting me up with excitement to want to do something? Follow that inner guidance that is telling you, hey, this is fun, I want to do more of it. Right? Like, we stop doing that, and that's a big problem.
And you know, you saying that, I want to jump through the screen and give you a big hug, because the experts that I have been having conversations with for young people have come down to that point again. Inner guidance system, emotions aren't to be feared. What are they telling you? Communication, not just with others, but with yourself. And gosh, that's so empowering. I wish I'd have known that at such a young age. I've had to sort of struggle to come to these realizations.
What's so amazing that we never think about, we don't think about what we think about, right? And what we don't realize is that most of the conversations we have are internal. They're not external. Most times that we're talking to somebody, it's in our own head. So if you aren't liking the person you're having your conversations with most of the time, and you're telling stuff to that person that you would never tell to the people you love, it's time to stop that,
Wow.
right? If you actually vocalized everything you've said about yourself in your own head to your best friend, or if you're a parent to your child, or, you know, if you're a student to your teacher, you'd get detentions, right? But we talk to ourselves in such a way that is so disempowering, and we don't know it because it's not like we are focusing on it consciously. We're
Mm.
doing it unconsciously. We're not sitting here going, what am I going to do? Well, from 2 o'clock until 3 o'clock, I'm going to tell myself that I'm dumb, fat, and a moron, right? No, it just happens like, oh my God, I messed that up. What am I doing? And you're just kind of talking to yourself in your head, and you don't realize how bad so many of those things are.
Yeah.
So what I like to tell people to do is slow down in order to speed up.
Yeah.
And just as things are going in your head, just stop and take a couple of breaths and center yourself and be like, cancel that, delete that, and replace it with a better thought.
Mm.
You don't like something, do over, right? Just like in sports. In golf, if you hit a ball really horrible, they call it a mulligan. You can do it again, hit another one. Maybe not in the professional sports, but when you're playing with your friends. So same thing with the statements that you're saying in your head. When you're saying some trash like, oh, so stupid, I can't believe I'm so dumb. Whoa, you just put some pretty bad stuff out there. You wouldn't look at your best friend and say, I can't believe you're such a moron.
Yeah.
Right? You would never
Yeah.
say that. Your own baby, right? Little 1-year-old baby, you wouldn't look at and be like, hey, little baby, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But we talk to ourselves that way as kids, as adults, and that's got to stop.
Similarly, just extending what you just said there, is, you know, I've had to work through with my own children this fear of failure, this fear of making mistakes. And we've always celebrated mistakes, because some of the best lessons I've ever learned is when I've fallen flat on my face, right? Not that I particularly want to do it again, but it was like, wow, wake up call, shift. I need to, you know, be conscious here. I need to be mindful, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, that's really important. And, you know, being able to understand that, I don't like the word mistake or failure, because I believe that it's a whole experience. And I believe that everything that you experience is benefiting you in some way if you are consciously able to give gratitude for that, even when it's become wrapped in a way that we didn't want. Because, you know, we want to be strong. So we want strength to be wrapped in a big, you know, rainbow bow and placed in gold wrapping at our feet. And it's not, it's wrapped in an opportunity to be strong. So you've got to struggle in order to develop the strength. Right. And, you know, I love what you were saying there, because I think it's really important for anybody, but particularly young people, to understand that, you know, things don't all have to be perfect. And also within that, your journey isn't supposed to make sense to anybody else. And it's again about what you were saying about the lens earlier, that, you know, the things that I've done have never made sense on paper. You know, my husband and I have always been quite bold and gone, this feels right, let's do this. And then you do the math and go, we really shouldn't have done that, but we managed, you know, because on paper it never made sense, but we've always just made it work because that was the vision, that was the goal. And, you know, people around us have been saying, you can't do that, that's not going to work, you're going to fail. And we're like, no, we're pretty much tuned in that we feel that this is the right move for us. And I think, you know, getting back to that basic, as you say, communication with self, connection with self, understanding that your emotions are telling you things, your relationship with yourself is the most fundamentally important relationship of your life.
Without question. One of my big guidance systems, besides just looking at failure as an opportunity to grow, I feel like that's a very important piece. And it's 50% of the game. Wow. The other thing with failure is that I built the core of my business on the idea that the average child lasts 400 times a day and the average adult lasts 4. And there's a real big problem with that. Yeah. So if you can also look at your failures as your greatest stories for the future, for one of two reasons. It doesn't mean you have to have overcome it, learned it, and gotten better from it. But how many times as an adult do you sit back with your friends and reminisce? Yeah. On all the dumb things you did as a kid And it's funny, if you were just that kid who just sat there and said, yes, 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 okay, staying right here, just like this, staying in your lane, just staying within the box. If you followed that route, that kid usually gets to college and goes and blows up. Everything goes crazy,
Yeah.
right? So as you go through life, so many of those failures become either great learning lessons or hilarious stories that one day you tell your friends. And we know it when it's not about something like business, right? We know it like, oh my God, can you believe I asked out that girl? What was I thinking? That was crazy. I knew she was out of her mind crazy, but I still went on a date with her. Of course it all blew up. Or can you believe that I showed up and I played that sport while I had a cold? What was I doing? And I know that might be a little hot button now, but like I showed up like playing a sport totally out of my element and totally blew it. Like so many of the things we do end up becoming hilarious stories later.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I started that business. That was a bomb. That's funny. At the time, I was like, oh my God, my whole life is falling apart. What did I do? I can't believe I made this decision. But afterwards, it becomes like your funniest stories.
Yeah.
So what I do preemptively now is a story that you tell from stage is called a vignette. That's the term for it. So what I do when I'm in the middle of something crazy or failing at something or anything like that, I just sit back. I'm like, this is going to be a really good vignette one day. I'm going to be excited to tell this story from stage one day. This is great writing material, and I'll write it down like that. And so the mental term for that is called reframing. So it comes back to the lens. My dad's a retired eye doctor, right? So he used to always go, which is better, one or two, right? Which lens? And he'd switch the lens. Which one are you seeing clearer on? And that to me fits so well with what I do, which is help people look through a different lens at any adversity that they're going through. Because if you can look at a different lens and learn how to transfer your emotions, transmute that energy, life becomes limitless.
Yeah. Yeah. And something that I talk about as well is taking that pain point and turning it into power, because there's power in everything. And, when I look at the most painful times of my life and my children's lives, it wasn't fun to live through. It wasn't, it was like, oh God, when's this going to end? This is terrible. But at the end you go, wow, this is amazing. Like, I'm so glad we stuck in there. I'm so glad we negotiated through it. I'm so glad we did that. And, what I talk about as well in my work is, everyone talks about the caterpillar and the butterfly, but nobody talks about the chrysalis. And that's where everything is sludgy and messy and dark and gloopy. And that's where all the magic happens. But nobody likes to talk about the chrysalis stage. They like to go, look, I was a caterpillar. Now I'm a butterfly. What happened in the middle? That's what we need to be talking about.
And no one goes on dating websites promoting their chrysalis phase when they're in it. They'll either use old pictures or they'll wait until they're through.
Exactly. Yeah.
Same
I love this.
For sure.
Love it. So, okay. So just to wrap up, with the people listening today, so we're talking about young people and children. This has been a weird time for everybody globally. Yeah, we've all been thrown into a completely new experience, and there's been lots of things happening outside of ourselves that we're having to navigate through, and we're having to also cope with outside opinions and energies and behaviors that possibly have been heightened during this phase. So what would you say to someone listening now that is absolutely completely accessible and doable from today, that they can empower themselves both mentally, physically, spiritually, the whole thing? What are some key elements that they can start doing from today?
Awesome question. I'll give you guys a few things listening at home. Number one, play more. If you fast forward to a year from now, when hopefully all this stuff has passed, the most important thing is your mental health. I don't care if you're a student, a parent, anything. We're so worried we've got this agenda we need to keep. Well, John Lennon likes to say, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. Yeah. And this is an amplified version of that time. So for me, I have 2 kids at home. I care 10 times more that during this time, they're happy, they're losing track of time and space, and they're playing and laughing than anything. And you know what the difference between a kid and an adult is? Excuses, excuses, and excuses, which then creates pressure and pressure and pressure. So parents even more need to play more, even more need to take breaks. Yesterday, stressed out business day, it went a little bit long, some adversity thrown my way, and I said, pause button. And I went and I watched a physical humor, dumb Chris Farley old movie.
I love Chris
laughed
Farley.
and laughed and laughed. And I
Love
watched
him.
Beverly Hills Ninja, which I
That's
haven't.
one of my favorites.
Oh, it was amazing. And
Yeah.
he's a genius at physical comedy. See, even to look at your face right now when I just mention it, it lights you up.
Yeah.
So it's like, is what you're doing right now, a year from now, are you can even remember it? And the truth is, when you're in school, most of it is get through the obstacle, pass the test, regurgitate, forget it, move on to the next. And I would much rather focus on the mental, emotional, spiritual well-being of myself and my children during these times of adversity than I have to hit all my goals or else my life is meaningless. I want to come out of this feeling like, wow, in spite of all this, I am so mentally, emotionally, and physically secure and happy and smiling. This isn't fake. I'm still laughing and having fun, that I can help lift other people up, which is really the second thing I would tell people to do. Is I watch, like so many of my clients, they get really selfish and self-absorbed and caught in their own problems so much. So they're looping, trying to figure out their own problems. And the first way to figure out your own problems is to go help somebody else. Go help somebody else.
Yeah.
Go reach out to somebody else and help lift them up. It will put you into a place of power. It's a selfish thing to do, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I love that.
Go make somebody else feel better. You're going to feel more confident. You're going to feel more whole, more complete, and then you can handle your own stuff better. And then the last thing that I would tell anybody at home right now, what is something that I can do right now, is this is going to sound so overplayed and so cheesy, but it's gratitude. And gratitude, people do gratitude wrong. They do gratitude wrong. They just name things out with no intention and emotion behind it. And gratitude is really simply changing your lens. Instead, whatever you focus on is going to expand. The universe is going to listen to you. And if you're sitting around and all you're focusing on is what's going wrong, you're going to see through a lens of what's wrong, and you're going to get more wrong thrown right at you. If you can simply step back and say, you know what, in spite of everything going on right now, I'm really grateful that I took a breath today, because you know what, a lot of other people didn't. They had a ventilator helping them and they died. Really grateful that I just ate breakfast, because you know what, a lot of other people had no access to food. Real human beings, not just the people starving out in the poor areas you've never seen before. Like, go through your basic things, slow down, and tap into just, oh, this is really cool. You know what? I'm so lucky that I have a partner. Whatever it possibly is, sit back and be really, really just grateful for it. Sit in that, feel that emotion, and then express it. Make it an actual action. Surprise somebody. Everybody likes to hear other people, they like to hear other people tell them their wins. Like, go up to somebody, go to your teacher and just say, hey, if you're a student home, like, I just want to say thanks for pushing yourself through all of this and still being my teacher right now. Your teacher's going to be like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And they're probably going to pass you, even if you didn't study as hard. I pulled that trick in college, and I had a class where there's no way I should have gotten the grade I got, but the teacher just really, really liked me and gave me an amazing grade. It was like, should have been my worst grade ever, but I got a grade that statistically on paper I never could have gotten. And if you're sitting here saying that's horrible advice, well, guess what? The real world works that way too after school, right? People like to help people that they like. And the best way to be a liked person is just be happy, and just be happy with who you are regardless of them. That's the secret. You aren't trying to please them. You're just trying to please you and be a happy person. Yeah. If you're a happy person, that's infectious. And people want to help you out. They want to see you win.
Yeah. And what I love about
your teacher at home that I told you guys that.
No, that's a secret. We won't say anything. What I love about what you said as well about the gratitude is that gratitude can be held as well for things unexpected. So last year I actually lost my dad, and I had all this grief to deal with because he was my guy. Like, I was loved my dad, adored him. And it was inevitable. Like, we expect to lose our parents, but it still hits you like from, these are blindsided. And I got to a point recently that I was able to feel gratitude for my grief. Because I thought, you know what? Not everybody has an amazing dad like I've had. What a fantastic opportunity to have the opportunity to grieve this wonderful relationship that I have.
Right.
Because some people will never have the opportunity to have grief for that because they've never had a fantastic dad like that. And so I think,
Right.
you know, the gratitude as well, it's not just for everything that's going right, you know, it's for stuff that is been hard or it can be perceived as negative. But if you can just shine that light of gratitude over it and say, how can I be grateful for this? It is empowering, because when I reached the point I could feel grateful for my grief, a huge weight lifted off of me. And I felt really connected, you know?
It's beautiful. And that even during times of struggle, because struggling, like I tell people with transformation, this is a perfect example. If somebody's not happy with something and they want to transform out of it, when they look at like, what is the first energetic emotional state that sparks transformation? It's anger. Yeah. Right? So what happens is people are shameful, they're sad, they're depressed, they're apathetic, they don't care about what's going on. They're just comfortable being uncomfortable. And then what sparks transformation is they're getting pissed off with the status quo. Like, I am so angry with the fact that I'm so tired all the time and I don't like the way I feel and look. I'm so angry with that. That's actually a good thing. That's like the catalyst that's going to spark the change to get them where they want to go. I am so angry with my current living situation, relationship, financial situation, friendships, anything. You want that anger as your spark to transmute to go somewhere else. So if you can look at like moments where you're frustrated in life and say, wow, I'm really grateful that I'm frustrated. Because if I wasn't frustrated, I'd either be shamed or guilt-ridden or apathetic or feel totally disempowered. You need to get to those points to get any kind of spark to move from a place of everything feeling forced to finally feeling that internal empowerment.
Yeah, rocket fuel.
Right.
Yeah, amazing. Look, Kyle, I could literally talk to you all day. I just loved this conversation so much, and I'm sure that people are listening will be totally empowered by what you've said. And I am so, so grateful for you being here. And I'll put all of Kyle's details and her ways that you can connect with him in social media and everything. You can follow him and his work underneath the video. And I just want to say thank you, my friend, for being here. And it was an amazing conversation. Thank you.
Much appreciated.